Yeah, Coach. Just a couple things. One, obviously Jay and Dario were questionable going into the game with the ankles. What's their status for tonight's game?
They're not playing.
Okay. And just to follow up, Coach, I'm looking at the standings of the entire league, and 4 of the 5 top teams are coached by former NBA players. Obviously, you, Coach Lou, Doc, and Steve Nash. What does having played in the league, how does that help or impact, as far as coaching? God, even though there may be a gap there in between, when you guys played and coaching now, how does that help having been a former player coaching?
I mean, I would imagine there's just, the experience of knowing exactly what players are going through at times. I think when you've done it, it's not that you know more than guys who don't, but sometimes you can relate to certain situations a little bit better, maybe. It's hard to say because I've been around. I've had coaches who've played, and I've had coaches who haven't played, and it's a weird topic. I'm not quite sure how to answer that one without being disrespectful to coaches who haven't played. I think that's a subject I try to stay away from because it's hard to answer those questions without being disrespectful. But I think there's, benefits of having played, and there's sometimes when you played, you think you know everything because you did play. So it could work for you, it could work against you. But I think there's, good coaches that come from all walks of life. Some played, some didn't.
Just a reminder, if you do have a question for Coach, to hit the raise hand feature down at the bottom. Next up, we have Mark McClune with Arizona Family. He'll be followed by Kellen Olson.
Hey, Coach, coming off, the road trip, the way it ended, kind of the big win and the emotions that went with it. What's the challenge like to kind of get right back after it, another big game? And, with kind of how hard the road trip is, how do you kind of get your guys, right back locked in with, I guess, just how physically taxing the road trip was?
I mean, you approach it the same way you approach every game. We had a bit of a shorter shoot around this morning to preserve legs and energy and that kind of thing. But the season is the season. Everybody's going to have some stretch of their schedule that's going to be a bit taxing. You do the best you can to prepare without wearing guys out at this point in the season. All of our guys on this team now have been through this, where they've been on a long road trip and had to come back home and play. So this is nothing new, even for our young guys. So from that standpoint, I think we're ready for it. And we just, I've always said every game has a life of its own. You understand what happened before as far as the travel and the energy expended. But, once we prepare and get ready for a jump ball and do all of that, you got to get out there and be productive.
Next up, we have Kellen Olson with Arizona Sports. He'll be followed by Cameron Buford.
Hey, Monty, they've got Rondo at the deadline. He had a great game against you guys the last time these two teams played. What do you think he brings the Clippers specifically?
Leadership. He's a champion, a two-time champion. He's been in every situation imaginable. And he gets them organized on offense. Just a really smart player on both ends of the floor.
Next up, we have Cameron Buford. He'll be followed by Gina Mizell.
Hey, hey, Monty. How you doing, sir?
Okay.
I want to ask you how you look at this last, you got 10 or 12 games left in the season. Do you look at them as a collective or trying to prepare for the playoffs? Or are you taking it one game at a time? And then what's the mantra that you're giving to your team to kind of focus out this last portion of the season?
We haven't given out any mantras for the last remainder of games that we have, and we haven't made the playoffs yet, so we have to, make it. And then once we do that, then we can, move on to the next thing that is on our table. I look at it both ways. I look at the next game, and then I look at the rest of the season. I try to plan a little bit without getting too far ahead of myself. But we've always been kind of a program that takes it one game at a time, trying to do the next right thing. But as the leader and caretaker, I do try to plan out practice times and where I think I can get, add a play or a wrinkle or two, that kind of thing, without getting too far ahead of what we're trying to do right now.
Next up, we have Gina Mizell with Suns.com, followed by Ohm.
Hey, Monty, with Dario and Jay still out tonight, just what have you seen out of Frank in his ability to get back in the rotation, and maybe what kind of is the task for him tonight moving forward?
Well, we talked about it this morning, the segment in the third and the early fourth defensively was a really good segment for us, and it happened because he was really good in his pick and roll coverages. He got his hands on a couple balls, and he's just really good in the paint. And I'm not quite sure anybody expected him to hold it down the way that he did. And kudos to him for being ready to play. And he's got to do the same thing tonight. They bring DeMarcus in as a backup big, and that's a tough task for any big in this league, especially in a backup role, because DeMarcus has been a starter for such a long time. So you got to keep DeMarcus off the glass for sure. And then Frank's been a really good connector for us. I've talked about it since he's been here, and I thought he showed some of that in the New York game.
Defensively, like you mentioned, that hasn't necessarily been his MO during his time in the league. Just maybe how have you seen him improve on that end of the floor since you've been with him the last couple of years?
I think for Frank, it's just being in the right spot. Body position can help you a ton when, you're not a great athlete or you're not a rim protector. I thought he was in the right spot a lot when he was in the game the other night. And that's, a lot of times that's half the battle. It's IQ and understanding what the opponent is trying to do. I thought he did that pretty well the other night.
All right, we have time for just two final questions. Next up, we have Ohm Young Misuk, followed by Greg Moore.
Hey, Monty. Last two times you guys have faced the Clippers, Paul George has been very inspired against you guys. What have you seen from Paul George in your two times against him, and what's allowed him to get so comfortable against you guys?
He's just been really good. I don't know any other way to say it. He's been able to just knock down really tough shots. It hasn't been because we haven't defended well. When you watch the film, we've had hands up on his shots, and he's just knocked down really tough shots against us. His ability to get to his spots because his handle is so tight is something that has improved with, at least from my perspective. But he's just he's a good, tough shot maker. And I thought our guys, played good defense. We were physical with him, and he's been able to knock down shots. And, hopefully we can prevent him from doing that tonight.
Thanks.
All right, and our final question comes from Greg Moore with the Arizona Republic.
Thanks, man. Hey, Coach, good to see you. Good to talk to you. I'm curious how much you've leaned on your family this season, how much they support they've provided, and especially, from your wife. What's it been like with your family this year?
Oh, I mean, they're my safe place for sure. Being able to go home and not get away from this, but just get a break from it by just diving into the relationships that are the most important in my life. And being able to, also allow them to enjoy this season has been fun too. So, my boys are still at an age where, we're having really good conversations about life and being teenagers and young boys and that kind of thing. And talking about social issues has been a big topic in our house, and teaching them to continue to love people and serve and not let the mistakes or the silliness that's going on in our society affect the way that they conduct themselves. Relying on my wife, especially on game nights, to talk before I go out and kind of calm down and get myself together and pray and try not to be as nervous as I typically am, has been huge for me. So I get phone calls from my daughters before games or text messages after games and on the road, that kind of thing. I'm in a weird stage where I have adult kids, I have college kids, and I have middle school kids and elementary school kids. So I'm all over the place, and but it's fun and I'm busy, and I'm just thankful that I have those relationships with my family, because they keep me focused on the things that are most important, my faith and them. And then I realize I get to be a basketball coach, and it gives me a bit of perspective.